What are energy arts? Energy arts are the skills and techniques used to develop, repair, and improve the body's internal energy system. The energy within the body is composed of multiple things. For example, qi is a catch-all term. So qi is composed of the biochemical signals that travel along the nerve fibers in the body. It's the thermal system of the body. It's also things like the overall bioelectric field that is not related to the electrical impulses traveling on the nervous system. So all the energy in the body is accumulated into a term called qi, and energy arts is the development of those. Energy art practices include things like yoga, Qigong, and some of the martial systems have specific types of energy art practices like singing, bagua, and tai chi. Those right there are your 5 big players when it comes to energy arts practice. In energy arts, you are doing things that are different than regular exercise, even though it may look like regular exercise. One of the things you're doing is you're coordinating the breath and you're coordinating the mind with the motions. Other things are important too, like posture, but posture is important to regular exercise as well. What it comes down to is I give 2 sayings in my classes. If you don't apply the principles of energy arts, which is the proper visualizations, the proper breath control, and other aspects, you will end up doing yoga that is basically fancy stretching. So yoga without the energy principles is just fancy stretching. Qigong without the energy principles is just fancy calisthenics. So you must apply these additional things to make it different from regular exercise. Energy arts can be secular or non-secular, as in a religious nature or something like that. Most energy arts that are geared towards health practices, medicinal practices, or martial arts practices tend to be secular in nature. However, there are spiritual aspects to secular energy arts, but these are atheistic spiritual practices. In other words, if you sit there and go find your happy place type meditations, those are spiritual practices, but they're atheistic. In other words, there's no God you're trying to pursue, no religious endeavor, no matters of faith. You are simply doing an atheistic spiritual practice. Remember, we all are composed of a physical body, a mental mind, which the mental mind is part of the physical body. And then our non-physical existence, we consist of a spirit and a soul. And I can discuss what a spirit and a soul is later, but for now, just ignore the concept of a soul and realize you have a mind, a body, and a spirit. And the same way you can train your mind by lifting weights and stretching and doing cardio, or sorry, if I said mind, I meant body. And you can train your mind by reading books and doing math problems, playing chess, and things like that. You can also train it and develop your spirit as well. But you can do it atheistically rather than religiously. I mean, you can do it religiously too, but when we're doing energy arts in my school, we do not do any religious energy arts. They're all secular, and any spiritual practices remain atheistic. In other words, it doesn't matter what your faith background is, you should be able to partake in what we do. Now, there are religious based, like yoga can be secular or it can be religious. Usually when it's religious yoga, it belongs to Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, or something like that. Qigong can also be spiritual and religious or non-religious. Examples of religious Qigong is Taoism. Now, Taoism is an atheistic religion, but they have their spiritual practices are incompatible with different faith systems. Buddhism can do yoga and Qigong as well, and unfortunately they put in non-atheistic spiritual practices into it. Even though Buddhism is largely an atheistic religion, it can still have non-atheistic spiritual practices. A true atheistic spiritual practice will be compatible with every single faith no matter what. If they're doing something that is incompatible with the faith, it is a spiritual / religious, not spiritual, but a religious spiritual practice. So energy arts can do a whole bunch of things such as help heal the body or enhance the healing. Let me give you an example of how this happens using methods found in Qigong, Tai Chi, and things like that. Let's say I have a shoulder injury, and if I go like this, it's like, oh man, that hurts. There's pain there. Now, the way that this works with energy arts is we're typically moving slow, and this is for slow type energy arts. There are hard type energy arts too, but you can read a little bit about them in the article that is the companion to this video, but we're not going to talk about it in the video. So one way that energy arts can help heal is as I move, if I'm moving slow, I can get right to, right, it's going to hurt if I go any further. I should be able to detect with my mind that any further, it's going to hurt. So then I back off. And then I go back through again and I go right up to where it's going to hurt and I back off. And I keep doing that. And you'll notice that at the end of the training session, you have a little bit more range of motion than when you started the practice. So in other words, I may have got to here at the beginning, and at the end, maybe I get to here. You know, some people, they might only get to here, and at the end of the day, they're all the way back up to here. It's going to vary from person to person, depends on the type of injury. Now, mind you, there are certain types of injuries that energy arts will not heal. Some injuries require surgery and other preventative measures. And in addition to when you're using energy arts to facilitate healing in the body, you must also include proper nutritional diet to make sure your body has the building blocks. Because unlike the ancient documents on this, it's not magical, mystical stuff that's actually going on. There is scientific physiology going on. But anyhow, you may notice that, okay, I get all the, here's the point of pain at the end of the training session here. You may come back the next day and start again, and point of pain is about where it was before. And then you get all the way up to here by the end of the training session. And then after a month or whatever, maybe 2 months, who knows, depends, you find yourself that the starting point is further along than the initial starting point, and then you get further and further, and as time progresses, healing is enhanced. Now, how is the healing enhanced? What's actually going on? Well, the ancients would have said that the chi is turning into new body material. That's not actually what's happening. What's actually happening is this slow, gentle movement is vascularizing the tissues, allowing the transport of nutrients and building blocks. That's why you have to have proper nutrition, because building blocks are involved. That nutrition, the building blocks, get to the injured site due to the increased vascularization. The slow movement and stopping at the point of pain is resisting damaging motion and causing the damage to be increased. The additional vascularization then adds more building blocks, and the tissues that have been damaged can start to be repaired. This is how energy arts help heal the body. How do energy arts help improve the strength of the body? Well, this is one way that Tai Chi does it, but Qigong does it also. And this is the soft method of building strength, not the hard method where you hold static poses like the Roman chair for a long time. The slow way of improving strength and speed, we'll just throw speed in with this discussion as well, is the slow training finds muscle fibers that are not involved in the motion and wakes them up into the motion. So basically, whenever you're moving, and I'm going to over-exaggerate here, but if I'm throwing a punch and I'm going real slow, you may notice, and like I said, I'm over-exaggerating here. You'll notice as I'm going, there'll be like little jerks along the way, and I'm jerking as I move slow. Those jerks are where the motion is skipping over sleeping muscle fibers. Notice they're not dead, they're just asleep. You need to wake them up. And so the goal of the slow training you see in a martial art like Tai Chi Chuan is to find those muscle fibers that are not awake and wake them up. By going slow and deliberate, and you find a place where it jerks, you're trying to smooth it out and get rid of that jerkiness by waking up those sleeping muscle fibers. When you go boom fast every single time, the problem you run into is that, one, you'll never notice where you have sleeping muscle fibers, and two, you just skip over it. But if you sit there and you wake them up, and then you go fast, all the muscle fibers are now involved in the motion. It's going to increase your speed because you'll have more components accelerating the technique, and it's going to increase the amount of power you hit with because you have more muscle fibers involved in the motion. And that's how Tai Chi, that's one reason why they train slow, is because they can increase their overall strength and speed by waking up those sleeping muscle fibers. Let's conclude this whole thing with talking about the charlatans. There's a lot of charlatans out there, like the no-touch knockout masters. They'll sit there from like 20 feet away and go boop like that, and someone will pass out on the ground, or they'll wave their hand and knock a whole crowd of people over. These are charlatans. They pretty much brainwash their students into, basically like Pavlov's experiments where, ringing a bell, feeding the dog, and eventually, salivate for the food, and eventually ringing the bell without the food would cause the dog to salivate anyhow. A lot of the students of no-touch knockout masters and other energy arts charlatans have been conditioned similar to Pavlov's experiments. So they get conditioned where if the master does that, they fall down, or if the master does this, they start going like that around in circles, which is hilarious. They're charlatans. They are not to be believed. they give those of us who teach the real stuff a very bad name. I wish we could get rid of them from our industry, but for some reason people keep believing that you can do no-touch knockouts and they can sit there and go, oh, and cure people of cancer and stuff like that. It just simply doesn't work. Another thing we need to be concerned about is legitimate people who are trapped in the fanciness of the old manuals, the old writings on energy arts, where they think that the magical, mystical properties are indeed the truth. And they get pissed at people like myself who go around and give the scientific explanations for what's actually going on. They're legitimate. They're just stuck in the idea that it's mystical and all these cosmic energies are coming in and causing all these magical effects. But when you come through and say, oh, the healing is not occurring because you harness this mystical force called Qi, and the Qi magically healed you, they hate that I give an explanation like, well, Qi is just a catch-all term for all the different energy in the body, and what's really healing you is the slow motion is vascularizing the tissues, allowing building blocks and nutrients to get to the site of injury, enabling or enhancing the ability to cure the injured site. But anyhow, please be careful, charlatans. Do not confuse the charlatans with those of us who are legitimate, and be aware there are legitimate people who teach, magical, mystical stuff with the Qigong. Now, I myself, I will use the old terminology, but I always let my students know that the old terminology is being used so that you can understand the old material if you ever go and read the old manuals and books and treatises and stuff on these arts here. But I explain, this is the old term, it's just being used for your ability to research, and then I go, here's what's actually going on scientifically. Anyhow, y'all take care, God bless you all. Check out my Patreon classes. Also check out the Advice with Kevin Dewayne Hughes. That's where I keep all this stuff. Check out TenkidoCon on WordPress as well. I'm building a website there specifically for all of this stuff. Be sure to follow all of the channels that are associated with this. Join our chat groups and stuff. If you're really interested in learning energy arts here, yoga, Qigong, and other things that I teach. Follow for the next segment, read the companion article, and join my virtual classes.